Josh Clark. We're talking to him right now. The former representative is running for the United States Senate and making impact all around the state. Welcome back, Josh. How are you?
Martha, it's great to be back with you. Thank you for having me back on your show.
So tell us in the time since we last talked, tell us about the campaign, what you've learned, and, why people should vote for you.
Well, thank you, Martha. Well, we are having a blast meeting with folks all over the state of Georgia on the Liberty bus as my wife and I and our 6 children crisscross the state of Georgia. By the way, Martha, guess what today is? It's
what?
Our 20th year anniversary. 20 years ago, she married me and made me the luckiest, most blessed man. It's unbelievable how fortunate I am, but yes. And you know what she said to me? I said, honey, you know what? This is a big deal, 20 years. And she said, you know what? This country's future and the next generations fighting for their freedom and liberty, that's an even bigger deal. And she said, you know what? We can celebrate this later. Is that an amazing woman or what?
Well, I've been married a long time, too. Those individual days aren't as important as they used to be. It's the everyday that's important.
You're right. Every day. Well, and
I hope because my husband's nice to me every day. I hope it's not just on special days.
That's a great point. Well, I tell you what, she's as fired up as I am because there is so much at stake. I mean, right now, speaking of marriage, family values are under attack, and we're seeing it clearer than ever. I mean, we've always known that there's this war to destroy family units, but now the radical left, I mean, they are bold about it. It's right out in the open. So I'm just more fired up than ever. I feel like we're at that point where it's either we stand up and fight or we don't, or we lose it all. So it's going well. I tell you, you asked, how's it going? You know what? I think that we can actually, Martha, we're going to actually get in a runoff with Herschel. There's 2 things the one thing I look at more than just polls, and there's trends, right? But polls we've seen in past elections mean very little. What we're looking for, I think you would agree with this, what you and I look at more than anything is trends. Well, Herschel's dropped 20 points. He's free falling because people are waking up out of this honeymoon stage. They're glad he's back in Georgia. I mean, is he back in Georgia? He's back and forth, but they're glad that he's in Georgia. We all love Herschel, my childhood hero, but when it comes time to who's going to fight for the next generation in the U.S. Senate, they're waking up. In fact, we're seeing them take their pins off and stickers off while we're speaking to the groups across Georgia. And I think the big fight is making sure that we're in that second place. We came out of the last debate before last night. We were in second place. They didn't do a poll last night that I know of, but I believe we're fighting for second place to get in the runoff with Herschel. So we're excited.
I'm sure you saw the news yesterday where the draft opinion for the Supreme Court decision related to Roe v. Wade was leaked. And, of course, it looked like a first draft to me. I'll be honest with you. It said all the right things, and if it ends up that way, that's great. But this was from February, so there could be 15 other drafts since then. So I'm trying to be cautiously optimistic, right?
Right.
But if this decision comes down at the end of June the way we think it's going to, then there's going to be a lot of work to be done in the U.S. Senate in the next year because the Democrats are going to be pushing to codify abortion into federal law. They've never had the votes before, and I don't know if they have the votes now in a 50-50 Senate, but this flipping the Senate back to Republican is even more important today than it was when you got in this race.
That's right. Well, and you know what? I'm the only person that is endorsed by Georgia Right to Life. This has been a central issue for me since I was about 6 years old. I asked my mother, I said, are we Republican or Democrat? And she said, son, parties change, but principles remain. We support the party that supports life. And after all, the Declaration of Independence makes that very clear, that these are God-given rights, and life is the first and the most important of the God-given rights, and it is up to us to elect folks who understand where those rights come from and will fight tooth and nail for them as if their own life is on the line. So I agree with you. It's more important than ever. And what's scary to me is, again, to be the only person endorsed. And I'll tell you, there's something else that came out of the debate last night that worries me, and that is I am competing with Latham Sadler, the Navy SEAL. I love his service to our country, but I'm competing with him for that second spot. And it's very, I think, scary when we think about the one, as you said, this vote is crucial, the Senate vote, because with this one seat, right, it's a tie-breaking vote. We take control of the Senate. And he is a member of the Council of Foreign Relations. Now, that probably means something to you. You probably know what that means. It's very scary. It's a global elitist organization. When you hear that candidates are members of the Council of Foreign Relations, you know they're bought and paid for and controlled by global elitists, and that is not what Georgia wants. So we're in a fight to make sure that we have somebody who can not only win in November, which Herschel can't do, but we're in a fight to make sure that we have a proven conservative that we can count on in the U.S. Senate.
I want to ask you one question about the budget before we get out of here. I know the budget starts on the House side, but of course the Senate is involved. But as you know, 3/4 of the budget is on autopilot. And the part we argue about the 1.2 or 3 or 4 trillion, depending on the year, is everything else. So how would you as a U.S. Senator approach getting everything on the table so that we can restructure our budget, not just kick it down the road every year?
Well, that's one of the issues I'm most passionate about. And, talk is cheap. We've been hearing a lot of talk about the budget. I mean, this is important. We're at 31 trillion and rapidly climbing. When I ran for the state house 12 years ago and won an election, nobody thought we could win. And as you know, served 2 terms and then I term limited myself. But one of my biggest issues is I was concerned about then. We were at 13 trillion and now we're at 31. And I'm going to do the same thing I did when I served on appropriations in the Georgia House. Is I was one of those budget hawks that will ask the tough questions. We can't have omnibus bills passing in the middle of the night, with all kinds of, junk in there that has nothing to do with what's critical, what's important. We got to ask what's the difference, between needs and wants. Right now, we're at a point where we got to cut out anything that is not absolutely essential. We need somebody who's going to be a penny pincher, like I do. I stoop down to pick up the pennies since I've been a teenager. I'll never walk past one. Martha, that's the attitude I'm taking to this, because we're stealing from our children and children's children when we continue to increase our national debt like this. This will destroy us. And it's happening under Democrats and Republicans. We've got to do better as Republicans as well. When we take this Senate back, I will fight just like I did in the Georgia House.
Josh Clark, if people want to help you, how can they do that?
Well, we need their help more than ever. We're going to get in this runoff. We need them to go to votejosh.com. There's never been more on the line. I feel like it is about this next generation that we're fighting for. I need their help. We need to elect a proven conservative, not roll the dice on 6 years in the U.S. Senate. That's a long time to send somebody who's not proven. So go to votejosh.com.